Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. It's a new week at Celtic and the team have touched down in Japan for their pre-season tour, which means things are well and truly underway. So hopefully over the next week we have a lot of news, rumours and everything else to discuss, but until then it's time to evaluate the Celtic squad as it currently stands after Brendan Rodgers commented very honestly on his plans with it. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. It would be much appreciated on that road to 40,000 subscribers. Head down below, big red button and the thumbs up would be very much appreciated. Today we're going to do another tier list on the weekly tier lists that we're doing right now. It might be the last one of the summer. I don't really have anything else to list after this unless you have any great ideas, but we're going to look at the full Celtic squad, evaluate who should stay, who should go, all the in-betweens. Should be a fun one, but let's have a look at what Brendan Rodgers said in regards to the current Celtic squad that he so desperately wants to improve. So Brendan Rodgers spoke very openly, very honestly about the current squad in the media yesterday, speaking to that publication I don't want to mention. He said this, he said, "We will be looking to trim the squad. That will be the natural process. I've already spoken to a couple of players and I'm sure I will do over the course of pre-season." You have to be honest with players. Even if it's a tough conversation, it's the most humane way and the most direct way to tell them the plan. If that's to move on and get playing football, then that's what they have to do. As we know, there are a few players in the Celtic squad that pretty much aren't up to scratch to be here. They probably don't meet the standards we need if we want to challenge in Europe, like Brendan Rodgers has said. And he's been very honest about that. He will trim down the squad over the coming weeks. He now has the chance to sit down and evaluate what he has, see who's part of his plans. And I'd assume that over the next 3 weeks on the build-up to the first game of the season, we will see a number of exits from the club. So there is work to be done. Rodgers is ready to start that. But who's it going to be? On that note as well, a lot of people have been getting a little bit nervous in regards to recruitment so far this summer. Yeah, I would say a mini panic amongst some sectors of the support in regards to our signings. My video the other day talking about the imminent double signing from South Korea, a lot of people in the comments getting very worked up, very sort of, I don't know, they weren't very optimistic in regards to the signing, saying it's not the quality we need or not the standard that we will need to challenge in Europe. But what I would say to that is, listen, it's still early doors for Brendan Rodgers. This is really his first chance now to evaluate the squad. He's been in with them training for a little over a week. He's not played proper games. The game against Portimonense was hardly anything to shout about. You know, he needs time to make the right signings. He's not going to rush them as soon as he comes through the door. So be patient. I know that the season is quickly approaching, but the transfer window doesn't shut till the end of August. Brendan Rodgers will get his work done, and these signings that we are making, they've been green-lighted by him. They've been players the club have been following for a long time, and I'm sure that they'll add something to what we've got. A lot of people saying, oh, well, you know, it's a gamble, it's a risk, we don't know their quality. We didn't know the quality of Kyogo, we didn't know the quality of Hatate, we didn't know the quality of Jota. We don't know with the majority of players who come into this side. These guys could come in, they could be the best thing from sliced bread, they could be duds. But there's no point in shouting about it until we see them kick a ball. So yeah, I'm sure the work will be done. I'm sure your mind will be put to ease when he really gets to work, when we're back from Japan. But yeah, let's talk about the Celtic squad. So there you go. There is the rows that we will be working with today. Very straightforward as always. New signing or new contract. Must keep players, important players, squad players, loan them out and punt. If you don't know how it works by now, don't even know why you're here. It's very straightforward. We're going to put the whole squad into this list, and we're going to see what we have by the end of it. And in my opinion anyway, remember this is always one man's opinion. It will be influenced by my own personal bias and opinion. If you disagree with me, tell me in a nice way. Don't come for me. Like, a lot of you take it too far. So we have a 32-man squad as it currently stands with our new double signing. Ignore the fact that Guan is in here twice, right? I know, I noticed that ages ago. I can't get rid of the other one. So we've got him up here. But as you can see, I've already went to the extent of putting these players in their row, the new signings and new contracts. Why? Because there's no point in sitting discussing them when they have just arrived or just signed a new deal. So Callum McGregor, Kyogo and Maeda, who are probably up in these top two categories anyway, must keep and important, especially McGregor and Kyogo being must keep players. They've signed new deals, great news for the club. So we don't really need to discuss them in depth. I mean, one of them's the bloody captain, for God's sake. And the new signings, they're just through the door, and it's hard to judge where they would actually lie. You could just put them all into squad because we don't know much about them. Until we see them kick a ball, we don't know the real quality of them. So Thiago Home, Telio, we've also put a Watt in here, right? And I know what you're saying. Oh, he was already here. It was an obligation to buy. He's not a new signing. He was always going to come. I know how an obligation to buy works. At the end of the day, he's still a new signing. He's still just signed as a Celtic player, a permanent Celtic player. So, yeah, we know the quality of him. I could say, right, okay, he's a squad player, but he's a new signing, so we're keeping him in here. I know how an obligation to buy works. Sorry, had to get it off my chest. And then we've got the double signing of Yang and Guan up here as well. Those two who are coming through the door imminently. We're awaiting the announcement. There's no point discussing them in great depth. They get a category of their own. But yeah, as we know with these three, very important players. So, let's not waste much more time and let's discuss the other players that are here. Now, 32-man squad. We do need to trim because with the UEFA registration and the league registration, you're maximised to a 25-man squad. So that's 7 names that automatically need to go. And then on top of that, if you want to make more signings, you need to let more go. So Rodgers has got work ahead of him to trim it from a 32-man to a 25-man squad. So let's cut right to the chase and talk about 4 players for me who are destined to go this summer. Let's just quickly get these 4 over and done with because these are the 4 who definitely should go. Now there's other players who I think should go as well, but we'll come to them because there's some discussion to have alongside them. Whereas these 4, they're not good enough. They need to go. Asaz Horigidi and Liam Shaw, young guys who were brought in. Kind of weird because they were announced before Ange was here. So they weren't even Ange Postecoglou signings. They're not up to the standard. And I wanted, to see them succeed like I do every Celtic player. It's just never going to happen. So those 2, I think, are destined to go. And then the other 2, Soro and Ayeti, who we spent a bit of money on, especially Ayeti, just not up to standard. They got their loan moves last season. They didn't get extended. They should just go permanently. Get them off the wage bill. Get them out of the registration. And move them on for the sake of their own careers. They're not good enough to play for Celtic, and the ship has long sailed. They're easy. 4 of them need to go. Right, Joe Hart's the first one we talk about then, and for now, he is important. Now, I know that a lot of people have raised the point that he's maybe not as good as he was in his initial season with Celtic, that his performances have started to decline, and that we need a new goalkeeper. And I don't argue many of those things. I think that he probably is on the kind of downwards trajectory now. I still love him to bits, and I don't mind him being our first choice keeper, but we probably should look to sign a new one. But until that happens, he is important because he's by far miles ahead of the other 2 that we have. So he's an important player as it currently stands. That's the way it works. So, yeah, there was those kind of murmurs of Livakovic. They were a little bit too late. He's now off to Fenerbahce by the looks of things. If we sign someone to his calibre, then obviously Hart becomes a squad player. But until then, he's still important to Celtic. Bernabei. A lot of people would probably have him right down here in punt. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and put him into loan out for now, because I think that he's maybe suffered with the fact that he hasn't had consistent football, that he hasn't had many, routine chances with the side, with Greg Taylor being so good last season. And, Bernabei came in expecting to be the new first choice left back. Greg Taylor blew us all away. I don't think he is good enough to play for Celtic, but maybe loaning him out and giving him that one opportunity to find his foot in and get a bit of form beneath him might help him out. The only thing is, usually a loan move for a player like him would result in not playing for us anyway upon his return. But right now I'll put him in loan out. However, I could see people saying punt because he was pretty poor. Anthony Ralston, pretty straightforward for him, squad player. Someone who's going to be relied upon for the opening few weeks of the season without Alistair Johnston. But someone who I think that we definitely should get to join him in being back up to Johnston. I don't think that relying solely on Ralston is a smart thing, because I still think that there is a massive gulf in quality between him and Johnston. However, solid. Great improvement in the last couple of years under Ange Postecoglou. Of course, worked with Brendan Rodgers at a very young age as well. So he's a squad player. He's got a part to play. When we need him, we'll use him. And he's someone who we should just keep around for many different benefits. Similarly to Ralston, I'm going to put Turnbull into squad. Now, a lot of people would have expected him, including me, to leave this summer. But by all accounts, it doesn't look as though that's going to happen. It looks as though he'll stay with Celtic, which I'm fine with. Maybe he can recover the best of his form under Brendan Rodgers. You know, that David Turnbull we've seen back in 2020-21 now. By all accounts, I don't think that means that he will start games like he did back then. But I think they'll still have a part to play. He could be useful. He's good backup to have. And obviously has a good goal in him as well. So he is a good squad player to have. I'd put him in there. James McCarthy. I don't think he'll leave Celtic this summer. I really don't. I don't see him going. Mostly because he's probably on quite a high wage here at Celtic, which we should try to get rid of. But I think that makes it harder for him to get a move that probably suits his best interests, because teams who can afford a wage that he might be on, they don't want him anymore. He's not a good player anymore. Well, he's a good player, but he's not as good a player as what I meant to say. He's not as good a player as he once was. He's been littered with injuries. His fitness is down the toilet. That makes it hard for a club to find a move for him attractive. I would put him into punt, though, if we could get rid of him, because what's the point of him being here? We're lucky if he makes an appearance this season, in my opinion. So, yeah, if we could, I'd punt him, but I really think he'll end up staying. Well done to anybody with a keen eye that hadn't noticed, but it's only now that I have realised at this point of the edit that Rio Hatate is not here. He's not anywhere to be seen. His wee photo gone. Completely erased from my memory. So if you noticed that, well done, because I've only noticed now. On that note, I think that it's very clear to say that Rio Hatate deserves to be in the top tier of this. He is a must-keep player. Just keep in mind that he was remembered at some point. I must have replaced his photo with Kwon, the new signing, and that's why he's there twice. So it's all making sense now. Rio Hatate, I mean, he's an elite player, isn't he? Keep him as long as we can. Much similarly to James McCarthy, Mikey Johnston, someone who I think should leave the club this summer, but I don't think will. Mostly down to the fact he's just picked up a 3-month injury, which would make a medical very difficult. Looks as though he'll be in the sidelines for a while, but the ship's sailed. I know a lot of people have been backing him to come back and get a chance after an impressive loan spell in Portugal. He's not up to standard. He's had his chances. Too many injuries. It's a gutter for him. I truly am gutted for Mikey Johnson the way things have panned out, but let's be real, it's never going to happen. And I think if he wants to kind of charge on with his footballing career, he should pursue a move. He should build on what he done last year in Portugal, and that's not by staying at Celtic. Scott Bain, I mean, not much to say. Squad, he's happy being third choice. He has the best job in football. He loves it, by all accounts. He's signed a new deal and everything, reportedly. You could argue he's up here in the new contract section, but we'll keep him in squad. He's happy doing what he does, and listen, there's probably not any more suitable option to be a third choice keeper than Scott Bain. Matt O'Reilly, for me, he goes right up to important. Because I would put him in must keep, to be honest, but I think he's someone that if a very generous offer came through the door, you could probably go, right, take the money. But I love him to bits, and I think that a lot of people have tipped him to be the one to watch under Brendan Rodgers this season, rightly so, because he's a magnificent player. He's got a lot of qualities that Brendan Rodgers will love. This could be a real breakout season. I say breakout season like he hasn't been great anyway for us, but I think this year he could take up another level. Very excited to see him. Very important player. Very good player. Keep your eyes on him this season. James Forrest. Very similar to Scott Bain. Squad player. Happy to be here. He's probably always going to be here till he retires. It's James Forrest. I mean, what else is there to say? I don't think he'll chip in an awful lot this season. I don't imagine he'll get an awful lot of appearances, but with Jota leaving, he does move up one space in the pecking order for now. But it's James Forrest, so what else is there to say? He is just the squad player. I think a lot of you are going to disagree with me on this, and I think a lot of you will call me biased for this because I've been very open on my love for Sead Haksabanovic. I'm going to put him into important because I think this season, Sead Haksabanovic could really be huge for Celtic, especially with Jota leaving. This is his chance to shine if he's given the opportunities, and I think he will be. He, for me, is probably one of the closest things we could have to Scott Sinclair that Brendan Rodgers has now, because he's nothing like Maeda. Maeda, I think it's going to be interesting to watch, because he's someone that a lot of people have said isn't a Brendan Rodgers player, whereas I think Sead Haksabanovic is. Sinclair was a lot faster, but they have a lot of similar traits technically. The way they like to cut inside, have a shot, the way they carry the ball. The only difference probably is the pace. But Haksabanovic, for what he might not have in pace, he has barrel loads in technical ability. He was very unlucky last season with the kind of stop-start momentum with the World Cup and injuries, etc. This year, huge season for him. Mark my words. He's going to be important for Brendan Rodgers. Liel Abada. How things change for someone who I was very open to leaving the club this summer and expected to leave the club this summer. I'm putting him into must keep, because I believe he now is a must keep player for Celtic. With Jota leaving the club, I think you've got to keep the known quality that you have with Liel Abada. Put it this way, last season our three wingers that were on rotation normally were Jota, Liel Abada and Dyson Maeda. It was one of the two of the three that would play on rotation. You knew the quality he had with those three players. And on the right hand side it was Jota and Abada. Jota's gone, it leaves us with Abada. I think we need to keep him. If he was to go, we'd have to replace both him and Jota in one summer, which I think is a really tough job. So for me, Abada's became a must-keep player. Even if there is talk of him wanting to move, he still has a long time left here at Celtic. He'll still happily stay another year at Celtic. He's been open about that as well. I think he's must-keep. Oh, he goes into squad for now. But what I will say is, under Brendan Rodgers, I think it could be very interesting to watch his development. I think you'll like him. I think it will suit Brendan Rodgers' football well. But of course, Kyogo's the man. Nobody's taking Kyogo's spot up front right now. Or will continue to do what he done in the second half of last season. Pretty straightforward stuff. He's a squad player for the time being. Benjamin Siegrist. I think that you could argue to put him in punt, but I'm going to use the same thing I said about Joe Hart. Until we do sign another keeper, he is a squad player for now. You could say he's the third choice. Now, I've been throwing third choice around for Scott Bain. If anything, Siegrist is the third choice now, and Bain's the second choice. So he's in squad until we sign someone else. As soon as we sign someone else, he will move into punt, because it looks as though it's not really working for him here. Squad for now, though. Alistair Johnson, easy one. He goes into must keep. Fantastic player, fantastic signing. So glad he's here at Celtic. He was just brilliant when he came in January onwards. It's a real shame that he's picked up this ankle injury that will keep him out for the first few weeks of the season. But he'll come back. He'll be the player that we know he is. Can't wait for it. But he's a must keep. He's top tier. Greg Taylor, he goes up to the important category. Because he's someone that he lies in that weird position right now where he's been brilliant. Last year, one of our Player of the Year candidates. He was my Player of the Year winner in my eyes. I thought he was brilliant just for the expectations that he surpassed. He was meant to be replaced. He wasn't. He made the place his own. He's made it one hard to take. But I think he's one of those players similar to someone we're going to speak about in a moment who, when it comes to Europe, you can't deny we can improve on. So I wouldn't mind Celtic diving in for a very good left back, but Taylor right now, important, great, love him to bits. He deserves that spot. So similarly, I think Carl Starfelt lies in a very, very similar situation where brilliant, fantastic season last year, no complaints about him whatsoever, but when it comes to Europe, I think that you can improve on Carl Starfelt. And that's just being honest. And if you want to get better, then you've got to do those sort of things. But he is an important player, no denying it. He's came on leaps and bounds from those first few weeks that we've seen him in a Celtic jersey, which some people still oddly hold to him. But I love him to bits. Big Swede. Liam Scales. Now, the thing is, I really like Scalesy. As a guy and you know, someone who I want to see do well. I like him. And I'd love to see him get a chance and do well at Celtic, but let's be real, it's not going to happen, is it? I think that he goes into the punt category. Look, he was at Aberdeen last year and it wasn't like he was consistently great for them. He was very hot and cold. Some weeks he was the best thing from sliced bread and some weeks he was the worst thing. So that, for me, says a lot. If you're not going to Aberdeen and you're not performing week in, week out at probably a standout level in that squad, you're probably not good enough to do it at Celtic. And for the best of his career, we probably should move him on to the likes of an Aberdeen so that he's playing football, getting better and getting chances rather than stalling his career here. But I do like Scalesy, so best of luck whatever does happen with him. I forgot he was even a Celtic player, to be honest, but yeah, I don't think he's probably the standard that we need. Kobayashi is one that, wow, he's only played 6 times, but he's not made a good impression, has he? And that's, you know, usually I'm one of the most optimistic in Celtic fans. Usually I like to give people chances, and usually I try and defend folk for as long as possible on here, but he didn't do a great job, and especially when he had a massive opportunity to break into the side and stake a claim while someone was out injured, he didn't do it. And if anything, he lost his spot to a centre midfielder in Tomoki Iwata. Says a lot. But it's so early doors, coming over from Japan, 6 games. Do we suddenly say no to him? Some will. But look up here. There's not a lot of centre halves. Which means right now, until we improve, until we get more, he's a squad player. Whatever your opinion is on him, you have to take it aside for a moment, because we don't have a lot of centre halves. And finally, talking about centre halves, Cameron Carter-Vickers, he goes right to the top of the pile, to the top of must keep. Maybe aside from McGregor and Kyogo, you could see he's the most important player in this squad. For some, he might even surpass them. He's that good. One of the best centre halves I've seen at Celtic in my lifetime. Someone that is going to be impossible to replace almost when he leaves. He is just brilliant. It's Cameron Carter-Vickers. What else is there to say? So there you go. There is my evaluation of the Celtic squad heading into the new campaign. And, you know, there's only 8 players here between loan out and punt that I have set to leave the club, which would take our total from 32 to 24, which would only leave 1 available registration slot. That, to me, signals that Brendan Rodgers might do even more, because there ain't no way that we're only making 1 more signing this window. So who knows who else from this squad might move on this summer. Very interesting. It's going to be an interesting few weeks to keep on top of it and watch develop. But there's my evaluation. 24 players that are good enough, I think, to stay with us at this time. Yeah. Wonder what will happen. And that does it for today. Let me know your opinions in the comments below. As always, I'm sure that a lot of you will disagree with me and my placings and such, but listen, one man's opinion. Yeah, of course we play on Wednesday. I'll be in touch tomorrow in regards to what I'm going to do for that, but it's been a long video, so I'm going to let you all go. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you all next time.